The Department of English and Women's Studies and Gender Studies at Loyola, and I'm honored to be able to welcome you all to the session on sexual violence in South Asia. I am going to just introduce each panelist briefly before their presentation. Each will have 15 minutes to speak, as well as allow times for questions about their individual sessions, and then hopefully we'll have 15 minutes at the end for overall discussion. Our second presenter, Vidya Murugan, is not here today, so we have just 4 presentations. The first of which is titled India Has a Rape Problem, and with us today we have Abha Rai, who's currently a doctoral student at the School of Social Work at the University of Georgia. She has over 10 years of extensive international community experience, is passionate about women's issues, and identifies herself as a feminist as well as a women's rights activist. Her area of focus for her doctoral scholarship is the issue of domestic violence among South Asian immigrant women in the United States. And joining her remotely through embedded video clip is her collaborator, Rashmi Goyal, who's an associate professor of law at the University of Denver's Sturm College of Law, where she teaches criminal law, comparative law, and a seminar in multiculturalism and race. Her scholarship focuses on culturally specific adjudication, juvenile justice, race relations, restorative justice, and gender violence. She's written several articles in these areas, including her most recent, Women Who Kill Women, which examines the role of mothers-in-law in India's dowry deaths. Rashmi is also the proud contributor and co-editor of Comparative Perspectives on Gender Violence, which was published last year by Oxford University Press.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abha, and I'm a doctoral student at the University of Georgia, Athens. And my co-presenter is Rashmi Goyal, who's not here, but she's there in the slides. You'll see somehow. We've tried something really cool for her to be here, so we've tried to embed her videos. Sorry, pardon me for my coughing. I came here from Athens, and Athens is like 80 degrees, and this is like, I'm in Alaska, so this is what happens. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you about the fact that India has a rape problem, which is a very, very serious issue. And we did a small study with Indian NGOs, legislatures, the court, the government. We did a very small study and a kind of a survey, and we have a few findings that I'd like to share with you all. So yeah. Do you want to move? Technology issues. So before I start talking about why the issue of rape is so important in India, I'd like to give you a very brief overview about a case that happened in 2012. It was a very, very tragic time for India. And this was a very famous Nirbhaya rape case. It happened on the 16th of December, where a medical student named Jyoti Singh Pandey, who was on her way back after watching a movie with a male friend on just one normal night in Delhi, took a bus hoping that she's going to go back home, but there was something very different that happened to her. So when she was on the bus, there were 6 men in the bus who brutally gang raped her and forced themselves into her vagina, completely disemboweling her. They tortured her. They also beat her friend, and then both of them were thrown down on the street and were left there for hours. There were a lot of mixed views on how long she was there, but the most accurate report that I found was that she was laying there completely naked for like 3 hours in the cold with her like intestines hanging out of her body. So it was very, very sad. Once she moved to the hospital, the doctors felt that she needed a lot of treatment and care. She just gained sufficient consciousness at the hospital to talk about the issue of rape and what happened with her in the bus, specifically the gang rape. She could not really survive the entire journey of her life, and she could not do what needed to be done, because there was a clip that I watched, and she said that she wanted to do a lot for gang rape victims, and she said that it's not my fault because I just took the bus and it wasn't her fault, but this is what happened to her. So 12 days after struggling for life and death and also being moved to Singapore for better treatment, she could not survive and she died. After this, there was a lot of hue and cry in India, all over India, a lot of hue and cry in South Asian countries and also in America about the issue of gang rape. And there were a lot of men and women, college students, activists, politicians, media, everybody was on the streets. We had a lot of candle marches in India, a lot of protests, and a lot of discussion about why this happens, how this happens. And let me tell you, rape is not new. It was not the first time in 2012 that this happened. It's been going on. In 2012 is when we just started talking about it for some reason, because it just became so famous. Legislators were called upon. There were a lot of committees that were set up in India to talk about the severity of punishments that should be attributed to rapists. There were a lot of theories that were attributed, and several reasons for the issue of rape were given, such as influence of migration, people moving from urban areas, from rural areas to urban areas in India, the issue of poverty. Poverty makes men do what they do, apparently was the theory then. Patriarchal values and the fact that men and women, girls and boys are kept so separate when they're kids, those issues were brought to the forefront, and those issues were discussed as one of the possible reasons for rape. I'm going to show you this video from Rashmi, who's going to talk to you about the legislative response.
Hi, I'm Professor Rashmi Goel. I teach at the University of Denver Sturm College of Law, where I focus in particular on criminal law and comparative law. I want to thank you all very much for allowing us to present our work here today. Abha has already spoken to you about the Nirbhaya case and the public response to that very terrible tragedy. I want to talk to you a little bit about the legal response and some of the social aspects surrounding gang rape and rape in general in India. So the legislative response that happened in 2012 after the Nirbhaya case was very swift. It prompted a commission by Chief Justice Verma, headed by Chief Justice Verma, and those commission recommendations were put into place in March 2013 by the legislature. Most of those recommendations were put into place. There were a number of things that happened as a result of those changes in the law. I think there are really three main things to focus on. The first is that the number of offenses and the nature of rape itself was actually expanded. So now the number of offenses included things like voyeurism, stalking, sexual harassment, things that weren't on the books before. And in that sense, the new laws better exemplified and better responded to the real experience of women in India. The second thing is that many of the offenses now carried harsher penalties. So instead of the offense carrying a 3-year term, it now would carry a 10-year term, or in some cases even life if the victim was put in a coma or a vegetative state or was killed during the attack or as part of the attack. And the third thing is that all of those offenses only perceive women as victims. They don't extend to male rape and they don't extend to rape of transgender individuals. It's all with respect to women and not any others. And from a social perspective, there's one other thing that was important. Some women's fast-track courts were set up to try and respond to all kinds of cases of gender violence, including sexual assault. And those were modeled after the courts that were already present in Delhi. So that was supposed to be a positive thing. Coming out of this, then, there are two really important hopes of this legislation. One is that these more severe penalties and broadening the range of the kind of offenses against women that existed would actually drive down the rate of offenses against women, would actually drive down the rate of violence against women. And second, it was important both as a legislature and as a country as a whole that it be seen to be tough on offenses against women. And those were the kinds of things coming out of the legislative response.
Next.
Even though we had excellent legislative response in terms of its swiftness, there are some real problems associated with that legislative response. And the first is that the legislative response doesn't really pay much attention to the social aspects of rape in India or indeed the way in which rape really occurs in India that might be different from the way rape occurs in other countries. Some of the stats tell us a little bit more about that. In 2014, there were almost 34,000 reported rapes in India. However, those are only reported rapes, and we know that rape is notoriously underreported all over the world, but it might be even more underreported in India. The real rate of rape might be anywhere from 3 times as much to 10 times as much in terms of the actual offenses being committed. This makes it very difficult to really respond. We do know some things that are particular to rape in India or particular to sexual offenses in India. Number one is that the rate of intra-family rape is actually very high in India. Rapes within the family and child rape are particularly high. In fact, in 2014, the reported number of child rapes was almost 14,000. The second thing is that the rate of stranger rape in India is comparatively low. The vast majority of rapes committed in India are committed where the victim knows the assailant. So some figures have put that as high as 98%, and those are extremely high. Despite these two facts, that we have a very high rate of known assailant rape and a very high rate of intrafamily and child rape, the legislation doesn't really respond to those characteristics. The legislation was both spurred by and sort of sees the contours of rape as primarily stranger rape. So you see the Nirbhaya rape case involved gang rape, strangers, 6 strangers on a bus, and not really paying attention to the kinds of social factors that allow for rape to occur within the family or rape to occur with a known assailant. In fact, the kind of rape that we associate with India is in contrast to the statistics that we actually know about. So when we think about India, and we think about India being a dangerous place for women, and we think about the kinds of warnings that were placed by a variety of countries, those all focus on the stranger rape or the gang rape aspect. And as a result, the legislation doesn't really do much to solve the real rape problem in India. Although the sentence is increased for family members who commit rape, it's not a significant part of the legislation, certainly not significant enough to really drive down rates of intrafamily rape or child rape. The social aspects of rape in India are in fact very complex, and there are a number of theories that present as to why rape occurs in India in the way it does.
Okay. Sorry. So, because I want to also allot some time for discussion, I'm just going to skip to the part where we spoke to a few NGOs, and we spoke to a few, I don't want to say government, but I want to say NGOs who worked with the government. So we spoke to a few of them, and as a result, we don't have a conclusion to the study because I want to hear from you guys what you feel, because there's a lot that needs to be done in the area of rape. So I spoke to about 7 or 8 NGOs in India, and there were a few social activists also, and most of them pointed to the fact that they're all working in the area of rape and sexual assault. Definitely everyone's doing a good job, but most of them are working in similar areas. So sometimes the same community receives like 5 different kinds of services, which I don't think they might need. So NGOs are doing a good work, but they're all working in isolation. When I try to look for a single report by NGOs saying what's happened since 2012 and how the situation's improved or become better or worse, there were like thousands of different things that came up, and everybody said different things. One major issue is that I have a very good friend working for this NGO called Kranti in Mumbai. They work with prostitutes, and she said something like, it almost feels like the issue of rape is not even applicable to them because they're not even like in the system. So they're like outside of the system who are being raped and abused, but they have no access because they don't even feature within the system. And in terms of the big 18 crore worth of money that was given to, that was disseminated by the federal department in India, by the state, there's like nobody who's been able to tell me I tried really hard to get in touch with a lot of people. There was nobody who could tell us what happened to the money, who has it, how much of the money is even given, has the money even been given. So no one knows anything. All the NGOs are trying to do their own parts, but everyone's, again, there's no money, there's no resources, I don't know what's happening there. Then the report said, the Justice Verma report that Rashmi spoke to you about said that there were a lot of fast-track courts that were set up. But India, I don't know if many of you know, but I recently went to India, like just 4 months back, and I went and tried to get to these courts and whatnot. There's so much of corruption, there's so much going on there, it's so hard to even, I could not find one single person I could talk to. Because everyone says, so theoretically, the law has really helped us, helped the country. Maybe like other countries think that, okay, we have a law now in place and it's becoming better, but I don't think practically anything's helping and anything's even happening there. So I think, and now she's saying that I have 2 minutes left. So yeah, so I think in terms of like problems, I think the issue of rape is very much happening in India. It's still important, it's still significant. I think people are reporting or trying to report now, but the issue of stigma and all of that still continues because India is very patriarchal. So I don't know what's happening with rape, and India still has a rape problem, and in my opinion, my firm belief is that this problem will continue as long as our culture continues to be the way it is. Any comments? We have like 1 minute and 30 seconds maybe, so I'm sorry, you guys can email me. Yeah?
Did you guys find out anything about marital rape? Because I know that that's definitely an issue, but if there's no, I mean, for how much I know, there's no like law against it,
Yeah.
just because of how our culture is and stuff.
So marital rape, like you rightly pointed, there's no law. So if you're married and you're over 16 years of age and your husband rapes you, that's not rape. Like you can't even say it. So culturally, you can say it at home because like everybody will be like, oh my God, she's married. What, is she crazy? And then you can't go out and report because like it's not even an offense, right? So it's happening. It's happening in houses, and some of the NGOs that I spoke to said that they're working in this area. But I feel like it's also problematic on the end of women who don't see this as a problem, because what does our culture say? Like if my husband comes and forces himself on me, I'll be like, something is wrong with me if I'm thinking it's a problem, right? So I think that thing, there has been some efforts which is starting that, but I don't think it's significant.
We really are.
Okay, sorry. I will talk to you.
More questions afterwards, but I was told to keep everybody 15 minutes so that everyone can at least get their presentation in. So if we're on, if we stay on track, there'll be 15 minutes of Q&A.
By the way, thank you everybody. And you guys can email.
So our next presenter is Lalit Kandarai, who's a PhD candidate and adjunct faculty at Indiana University School of Social Work. He has an MA in social work from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai and an MPhil from IIT in Bombay. He is engaged in researching domestic violence, housing, homelessness, urban redevelopment, and
Hi everyone, my name is Ruchi Ray, and I'm the Supervisor of Counseling Services at Apnagar. And for those of you who are not aware of Apnagar's services, Apnagar provides comprehensive or wraparound services in the Chicagoland area, and we also conduct advocacy across immigrant communities and to end gender-based violence. So we've been using this term gender-based violence quite commonly today, and I provided this lifetime spiral of gender-based violence to show that gender-based violence is more of an umbrella term to show other types of violence that go under that term. So here it is a lifetime spiral that spirals out into the elderly phase of life, and it starts in the middle, in the newborn phase of life. And the purpose of this is to show other types of violence that someone can experience in a lifetime. So if it is, Apnagar was actually commonly known as a domestic violence agency only, but now we've actually have been serving other survivors of violence. So in this presentation, I will be using the term survivor and not victim. Okay, So for those of you who are not as familiar with our services, we provide legal advocacy in which our legal advocates assist clients in knowing their legal rights and also accompany them to court dates. They help them with orders of protection, divorce, and custody, as well as their immigration cases. We also provide counseling services for adults, children, family, and group counseling services in which we use trauma-informed therapies. We're also in midst of building our new shelter. So this new shelter actually doubles the capacity of our current shelter of 15 beds in the Chicago area. We also, as all staff, we do outreach and education as part of our roles to go out into the communities and present what we do and how we can help survivors of intimate partner violence or gender-based violence. And this is also counted as an outreach role, what I'm doing today, to talk to you guys about what we do and what are the actual immigrant, South Asian women immigrant barriers to domestic violence or also intimate partner violence. We also have a supervised visitation and safe exchange program in which we work with custodial and non-custodial parents with a court order. Okay. So today I'm not going to talk about all the statistics around South Asian women and the prevalence, because we know the prevalence now in hearing the statistics from the other speakers. So I won't go into that. But I will talk about what Upnagar helps clients with and also what we have been hearing from our clients and survivors. So especially within the South Asian region from survivors that come from that region. So one of the very major abuser tactics that have been used to take advantage of survivors is to take advantage of their immigrant status as women. And so if the survivor is married to a US citizen, the US citizen may threaten that if she does call the police after physical or sexual violence, he will get her deported, or he will get her in trouble versus the other way around. And so she doesn't feel empowered, or she feels disempowered to actually make a call to get help. Also, as Lalit was saying in his presentation, caste systems are also used as a way to show privilege and also show hierarchy. If within an intimate partner relationship or within a marriage, if someone is married to someone in a different caste system, that is also used as an advantage over the relationship. Also using in-laws or extended family members to also abuse the woman that's in this relationship also becomes a barrier for them. Also, there's also other purposes behind marriage. So it might be because of a business deal. It might be because of a dowry. It might be for other purposes that the survivor herself will not know beforehand. She'll find out after she's married to this person. Her abuser might also have economic privilege. So he might be managing the bank accounts. He might be managing the financials and the insurance. He might not put her on the insurance or the children on any insurance and prevent them from getting the medical treatment that they need. Also in most South Asian marriages, there is a lot of jewelry that's involved, expensive jewelry, gold jewelry. And there's also, say, if it is an immigrant woman, she might have a lot of papers or immigration papers that the husband might say, okay, I'm going to take this for safekeeping, but she never sees those papers again. She might not see her passport again. She might not see the gold jewelry her parents gave her. She might not see anything from her wedding after the day that he takes all of her belongings. And he might also destroy those belongings. So also part of an Indian or South Asian marriage, there might be other dresses that are involved, that are gifted, and they may be destroyed. Also thinking about gender norms as a way to create power dynamics. What do men do traditionally within a South Asian marriage or a South Asian intimate partner relationship, and what do women do? And then how is that power used to control women and silence them? So a lot of abuser tactics surround the idea of power and control. And so we use, at Upnagar, we use the power and control wheel from the Duluth model to kind of educate our clients and also talk to them about, you know, these are the ways that an abuser can keep you in control of a lot of the things that you're scared about. How does he incorporate fear with these tactics? So we also think about the cultural implications behind the abuser tactics and what builds these barriers. So if a survivor is feeling like she's silenced by the abuse, she might not go straight to professional help. She might go to her family members. She might not even go to a friend. She might say that, you know, she won't be opening she won't open up about anything with anyone because she's that scared. Okay, and if she does reach out to family members, they might tell her stay in the marriage because there's also this stigma behind divorce and not making a marriage work or not making an engagement work. Okay. And then there's also, so if the survivor is in an intimate partner relationship or in a marriage, there might be rules that are set that she feels that she has to abide by because maybe within her family, she's been taught that, you know, the husband does make the decisions because it's a, you know, as Abba said in her presentation, more likely there is a patriarchal system and it gets passed down generations within the family. Okay, and then this also came up before, the sexual relations in a marriage being required and a woman's duty to maintain that marriage. So here, when we meet with survivors, we actually educate them that this is against the law. This is still called rape, and it's also changing the perspective of the survivor. She might not think that, you know, this is rape. She might think that this is her duty, and she's not able to fulfill her duty. And because if she does feel hurt, or if she gets if she has extreme symptoms after sexual violence, she won't feel comfortable to get medical treatment because she feels that she has to, this is just part of it. This is part of the marriage. And I talked about gender norms kind of across family generations with male privilege, thinking about within cultural or family norms. Maybe within the family too, the upbringing might have shown violence as a way to parent or punish, so it becomes a norm across generations. And also religious practices or beliefs are criticized. So if it is a Hyderabadi woman who chooses to wear a hijab versus another Hyderabadi woman who does not choose to wear a hijab, those decisions on certain practices are criticized by the in-laws, by the family that she marries into. So all of the barriers that I talked about and the cultural implications behind them impacts the mental health of a survivor. So we think a lot about safety first. That's the #1 priority. And in the next slide, I'll talk about how we can help someone that we come across that is experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner violence. but we do think about the symptoms of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, but it may not always be post-traumatic stress. It might be depression, it might be bipolar, but we have to assess in those ways so that we know how to best help the client. She might be feeling guilt or shame around her situation because she doesn't want others to know about her marriage not working. And so many community members asking her how her marriage is working or what's going on, and she's not saying anything. And a lot of the times when we work with survivors of trauma, we see this fight, flight, or freeze response. You know, and a lot of the survivors, they get asked, why didn't you just call 911? Why didn't you call for help? Why didn't you leave sooner? You have kids. So they have these repetitive questions that they're taunted with. So also thinking about, we assess for suicide or suicide attempt. When silence is so common within the community or within these types of situations, we have to assess for suicide or homicidal attempt. Also a lack of support, a feeling of being trapped. And when we do see survivors at the agency, we think about what decision does she want to make. We don't tell her, hey, you know, forget your cultural beliefs and if you want to stay in this relationship, we're telling you to leave, so please leave. We don't do that. We want to ask the survivor herself what she would want to do in her situation. Does she want to stay? Okay. If she wants to stay, what is her safety plan? What is she going to do the next time there's violence in the home? So if you've ever come across anyone who is experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner violence, we want to assess where is the abuser, where is he, what is he doing, what did he threaten, and did he go through with those threats? More of a lethality assessment, and then you can actually create a more individualized safety plan in that manner. We always want to think about safety first. Be a support and provide resources. And follow up with the survivor, because she might only come for that one time and you'll never see her again. She might only have that one day that she can meet with you and you weren't able to provide her resources. So with that being said, I have 2 minutes left. I provided the National Domestic Violence Hotline. If there are survivors in other states, we do provide this phone number. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline, they are more aware of the other organizations nationwide. Also, the Illinois Domestic Violence Hotline, Avnagar's phone number. Hamdard Center also works with survivors of domestic violence. One of all Indo-American, Southeast Asia, and Metropolitan Asian Family Services, they're not so much domestic violence related, but they do work with South Asian immigrant women because they speak those specific languages fluently. So I provided these resources if anyone is interested in referring someone. And that's it.
So, Dr. Gadami, I found the presentation really wonderful to hear you speak. And I wanted to know, as an activist who has stayed in the United States and now back home in Afghanistan, and someone who works in India, I feel that when we look at the whole question of feminism, there's always this whole rhetoric that there's this third world where women are always suppressed, and feminism there is not the same as it is here. And how do you, as an activist, try to bridge that gap when you're working with activists from all over the world? You look at, as you rightly mentioned, that they just view all Afghan women as having no rights and no courage or response. How do you address it?
That's a very good question. I might not have an answer to that, but like, I think feminism has like same goal across the globe. Like we are fighting for equality in a different ways and in different contexts and cultures. And the tools that we are using might be different. And I think there is no universal framework but this is very important for the international community to understand that the frameworks that are being created here abroad for the Western society, they do not work in the very collective societies like in Afghanistan. And I think it's important also for the international community to understand that women who are living there might be oppressed, they had terrible experiences, but they have fought through it. And throughout the war in Afghanistan, if you read the stories of Afghan women, if you just hear from them, you will be surprised how strong and resilient they are. And even right now, if you just talk to young Afghan women who are doing activism just as I do, they're like, they'll be inspired very much. And yes, I think that's how we can just increase their awareness. That's one way of like beginning it.
Yes, I would say that coming from an outsider's perspective, looking at these panels, I was intrigued by the different ways of addressing the problems of violence through like legal action or understanding social context, or actually getting like the data of figuring out the exact situations. Like the papers really fit well together, sort of painting a broader picture of the social and theological and philosophical underpinnings and economic. I'm wondering if you guys have anything to say to each other about commonalities in your papers or things that you would want to respond directly to each other's data approach.
I think I really like like I spoke to Apna Ghar because my area of interest is domestic violence, and also when like in my presentation, I spoke about the issue of rape and this notion of inherent, like very, very sad patriarchy in the Indian culture. So I think that's a very, like, even for your research, and I don't know how patriarchy works but from what I see, I understand that this is like a fundamental flaw in all of our South Asian cultures, and I feel like, I mean, it's very, very important for us as a culture to like stand up and address that, because that's like the crux. So if you don't address that, I don't think there can be any change in domestic violence. I think there'll still be rape. India still will be the rape capital. We'll still have domestic violence. We'll still have women who are suppressed, killed, abused, and whatnot. So I think culturally, I think all of us here in this room should take this responsibility on each of our shoulders and go to our friends, family, boyfriends, partners, girlfriends, anything, and make a conscious effort to talk to them about patriarchal values and equality and what you think, and just put it out there. Don't think that you have to do something because you're a woman. You don't have to. So just remember that.
I have a quick question for Alcantara, and I guess all of you guys. I'm Casey as well. So I know, like within our culture, domestic violence is kind of ingrained culturally. It's kind of the norm, especially psychological violence. If it's physical violence, you can see it.
definitely, like, it's very important to talk about this, so thank you for asking and bringing that up. I definitely think this is happening. I would be like wrong to say it's not happening at all, because I see it in my own house, it's happening. But I think because we've been a certain type, we've had a certain type of mindset ever since we were born, and this is like years and decades and centuries of belief. So I think it's happening. It's as though it's like part of our DNA. Like as soon as you're born, you become a woman. Oh my God, I have to like get married. I have to find a nice partner, husband. I have to be like well groomed. No going out playing with boys. No going out partying. No wearing short clothes. And if you wear short clothes, oh my God, you're gonna get raped. So that's just like as soon as I'm born or a new baby girl is born, that's just there. It's just part. It's part of her identity. So I think that shift is definitely happening, but it's very, very slow.
Probably allow people to move on to the next session. That would be the best.
I was I actually wanted to find out from Lalit quickly. I before we go to your discussion. Lalit, what was your take home? There were so many factors that were important in your study. I'm wondering.
The overall, like what I was working in India on this issue, and then for some few years, and then when I came here, I thought this is quite important area to research on, and this NFHS data, although this context of cultural context is very relevant even in this context, like there is limitation of this research because it does not cover a lot of areas, but certainly it highlights the issue of so-called because this DHS coming from America and it is implemented all over the same data set. And personally, I think wherever there is scope of voicing your concern from wherever it is, I think we need to speak out. And the data, although it shows that women are so-called empowered, taking decisions, but as they assert more, there is tend to be more violence. So similarly, with the cases of atrocities on Dalits in India, the more they get educated and they get build house or something like that, the assertion nowadays, this recent phenomena of urbanization and conflict with the modern values, even in the Nirbhaya case, I think that is happening quite a bit.